Obama did an interview with the New Yorker, and he was asked about marijuana policy. Now, what he said is raising some eyebrows, even though I don't think it's necessarily all that controversial. He said, it's not very healthy, quote, not very healthy, but, quote, as has been well documented, I smoked pot as a kid, and I view it as a bad habit and a vice, not very different from the cigarettes that I smoked as a young person up through a big chunk of my adult life. I don't think it's more dangerous than alcohol. Okay, so that's something that every single scientist has been saying for a very long time. That's what all the studies have shown. That's what all the smart progressives and libertarians have been barking for years now. I'm one of them. When asked if he believed marijuana is less harmful than alcohol, he said it is less damaging in terms of its impact on the individual consumer. Wow, so not only is he saying, well, you know, it's not worse than alcohol, he's also saying alcohol is worse. Now, of course, in typical presidential fashion, he then seemingly caught what he said and immediately qualified it and backpedaled a little bit. Quote, it's not something I encourage, and I've told my daughters I think it's a bad idea, a waste of time, not very healthy. Dude, you already said it. You already let the cat out of the bag. You already said, yeah, it's not worse than alcohol, and in fact, alcohol is worse than it. You can't run away from that statement. But guess what, man? And this is why I always get so angry at politicians who try to be too politically correct and walk on eggshells and please everybody with everything that they say. No, just be honest. If you tell the truth, then nobody could say, oh, I'm calling bullshit on that, or I want you to apologize, because then all you have to do is show the evidence. Show the studies that say, no, look, it is actually objectively the case that alcohol is worse than marijuana. You know, I always reference, there was a study, I believe it was done in 2005 in Britain. It ranked the lethality of all the different drugs. Okay, alcohol was ranked like the 6th worst. So, I mean, the only things worse than it were the things you'd imagine. So, like crystal meth and things like that. And, you know, marijuana was like 16th or thereabouts on the list. So, yes, objectively speaking, alcohol is worse for you than marijuana. But the thing is, what a lot of people have is it's called a cultural bias, where because you're in the society where you can go to the local corner store or to the bar and you could drink any kind of alcohol you want at any time during the day, all the whiskey, you know, vodka, all these different kinds of beers and wines and whatnot, people start to think, oh, well, it's socially accepted, so there must be a reasonable basis for that. This must not be as bad as all the illegal drugs. But that's not true. It's incredibly arbitrary how our drug policy came about. In fact, a lot of people say it's just flat out based on racism. It was all the Chinese railroad workers who would use opium, so boom, next thing you know, opium's made illegal, because you criminalize those segments of the population that you want to control. Same thing with marijuana. Largely minority groups that use it, boom, it's made illegal. Funny how the drug that the rich white people used, whiskey, hard liquor, that wasn't illegal. And when it did become illegal briefly, it was reversed almost immediately. And by the way, why was that? Because we saw that prohibition was a horrible failure. It was such a bad failure. It was so mockable. The mafia got strong as a result of that. All the criminal groups got so much stronger because you gave them a monopoly on a product. So they made a tremendous amount of money. And of course, violent crime shot up. And we're seeing the same thing now with a prohibition on marijuana and prohibition on other drugs. So the idea is, and maybe Obama's hinting at something here, but he still hasn't done enough to satisfy me. Yes, he has said, and the Justice Department has said, we're not going to go after the states that made it legal. So like Washington and Colorado, go right ahead. But they aren't taking that next step, which is trying to get it decriminalized at a federal level or legal at a federal level. I doubt they'll do that, but at least decriminalize it on a federal level, because guess what? The second that a Republican president gets in there, whoever the next Republican president is, President Paul Ryan or Marco Rubio, I shiver at the thought of that. Guess what they're going to do? They could reverse policy immediately and say, no, we are going to crack down on the states that have it legal. Because the supremacy clause in the Constitution says federal law overrides state law. So even if it's legal in your state, it doesn't matter. We're going to override it. So credit to Obama for finally telling the truth about weed. But I'd love to see the action follow the words.